He followed her from the corner cafe, not because she was distracted, not because she looked weak. He followed her because of a tiny gesture she made, something most people wouldn't even notice. That gesture, seemingly insignificant, marked her as someone he could manipulate. And before anyone realizes, these criminals are already testing, probing, nudging the boundaries of their victims, silently predicting how far they can go. You might think these things happen only in dark alleys or thriller movies, but the reality is far closer to your daily life than you imagine. Someone might already be assessing you at this very moment, and every response you give, every yes, every hesitation, is feeding their understanding of how to control you. But here's the thing, almost no one teaches you to recognize these first tests. Most people only notice the danger when it's too late, and that's exactly what makes this information both terrifying and essential. If you're fascinated by criminology and the psychology behind how people pick and manipulate victims, hit subscribe now. Don't just watch, learn, because this isn't just theory. The patterns you're about to see are happening in real life every day. Also, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing how far these stories travel and imagining someone on the other side of the world learning the same lessons. And remember, by the end of this video, you'll recognize the first subtle manipulations criminals use, the ones most people completely miss. Most people think criminals are reckless, impulsive, or chaotic. Movies, television, and media sensationalize violent acts as sudden, unpredictable events. But the reality is chillingly systematic. Criminals, especially those who prey on unsuspecting victims, operate like psychologists conducting an experiment. Every action, every observation, every interaction is a test, a careful probe of weaknesses, habits, and emotional triggers. Micro-expressions are tiny, involuntary facial expressions that last fractions of a second. They can reveal emotions that people are consciously trying to hide: fear, hesitation, nervousness, guilt, or attraction. A trained criminal doesn't need you to say anything. They watch your micro-expressions carefully, and often unconsciously, your reactions guide their behavior. For instance, imagine a person approaches you in a public place and asks a seemingly harmless question: directions, the time, or a casual favor. Most people answer without thinking. But a criminal watches for subtle signs. Do you hesitate? Do your shoulders tense? Do you avert your eyes? Each of these reactions is a data point, feeding the criminal's mental assessment of whether you can be influenced or coerced. The danger lies in how effortless this observation is. You don't feel threatened, you don't even notice you're being evaluated. But to someone with experience in manipulation, every twitch and every blink is information. This is why victims often describe feeling watched or uneasy without realizing why. By the time the threat escalates, they've already unconsciously revealed patterns of behavior that are predictable and exploitable. Criminals don't often strike first, they test compliance. Think of it as a warm-up exercise. A simple request, "Can you hold this for a second?" Or "Could you help me with something?" is not just casual interaction. It's a probe to gauge your reaction. People who say yes automatically or without hesitation are sending signals. I can be influenced, I can be controlled, I'll go along with small requests. Criminals extrapolate from these tiny interactions. If you comply once, you might comply again and again. Research in social psychology has shown that compliance escalates predictably. This is known as the foot-in-the-door technique. Small agreements make people more likely to agree to larger requests later. In the hands of a manipulative individual, this psychological principle becomes a tool for assessment and eventual control. A concrete example: a criminal might approach someone to ask a minor favor in a coffee shop, a pen, directions, or to watch a bag. If the person complies without thought, the criminal mentally notes, "This person won't resist when I push boundaries further." The test is subtle, almost invisible, but the implications are dangerous. Next, criminals begin testing physical and social boundaries. They need to see if the potential victim can be isolated or manipulated away from safety. This is where environment plays a role, but so does your response. A casual question like, "Do you want to step outside for a moment?" might seem friendly. A request to accompany them down a hallway or wait somewhere less visible is another form of testing if you follow along. Without hesitation, the criminal now has confirmation that physical boundaries can be breached. The terrifying aspect is that these tests often look normal. Many victims report thinking, "I just thought I was being polite." Politeness, empathy, and social conditioning, which we consider virtues, are exploited during these subtle probes. Criminals are not relying on brute force initially. They rely on predictable social behavior, measuring reactions before committing a more aggressive act. Beyond physical testing, experienced criminals examine emotional responses. They might use subtle teasing, challenges, or discomfort-inducing remarks to see how a person reacts under minor stress. Your reactions, fear, anger, embarrassment, or anxiety, tell them a lot about your emotional resilience. This stage is where the psychology of manipulation begins. If someone quickly becomes flustered or apologetic, they may be seen as more easily influenced. If they hold their ground calmly, the criminal may wait, reassess, or escalate differently. Every interaction in this phase is intentional. There's no random behavior. There's only data collection. And it is this data-driven approach that allows them to move from observation to targeting with precision. Finally, criminals observe routine patterns. This doesn't require confrontation. They pay attention to habitual behaviors: the time you leave work, how often you walk alone, where you park, your social habits, even the way you respond to strangers. Routine creates predictability, and predictability is exploitable. A criminal who understands patterns can plan interactions or attacks to minimize risk to themselves and maximize control over the victim. Many victims later realized they were being studied for weeks or months before the first direct approach. He had watched her for weeks before the first interaction, observing patterns so subtle that she would never have noticed. The way she crossed streets, the friends she laughed with, how quickly she answered strangers, all of it mattered. And when he finally made a small approach, it wasn't random. Every word, every question, every minor request was designed to elicit a reaction, to probe her limits, and to measure the boundaries of compliance. This is where the tests begin to escalate, where the criminal shifts from passive observation to active manipulation, but still without overt aggression. What happens in these moments often determines whether a target becomes vulnerable or remains untouchable. Even small interactions carry enormous weight. A criminal might ask for a tiny favor, like holding a dropped wallet or offering directions to a nearby location. Most people respond automatically, assuming politeness or helpfulness will diffuse any tension. But each compliance, each fleeting sign of hesitation, is cataloged. They're looking for patterns: how quickly you say yes, how easily you can be distracted, how susceptible you are to emotional cues. This is the second layer of testing, the escalation from pure observation to behavioral manipulation. As the criminal nudges boundaries, they watch not just what you do, but how you feel. Micro-reactions, like a nervous laugh, a quick glance down, or a slight stiffening of posture, all reveal information. To the casual observer, these are ordinary moments, insignificant in the grand scheme of daily life. To the manipulator, these signals are gold. They tell them exactly how far they can push, how far they can bend a person's normal reactions without causing resistance. And most victims never notice this until much later, often recalling the moment with disbelief. "I didn't even realize I gave them that power." The next step is subtle emotional testing. Criminals often provoke small amounts of discomfort or confusion to see how a person responds under minor stress. A seemingly innocuous comment, a deliberately awkward question, or a slight challenge to your judgment isn't meant to threaten. It's meant to provoke a reaction. The type of reaction, fear, embarrassment, defensiveness, or even irritation, gives the observer critical information. People who crumble or apologize immediately are noted as malleable, while those who remain calm and assertive force the criminal to adapt. In this stage, the criminal is learning not just what you will do, but what you will feel. Emotional resilience becomes a testing ground, a measure of vulnerability that can be exploited later. At the same time, criminals often begin to explore social boundaries. They test how much you are willing to trust strangers, how you navigate minor social obligations, and whether you respect social norms even when they are being bent. A request that seems trivial, "Could you move over a bit so I can reach that shelf?" is often more than polite behavior. It is a test of obedience and submission. Many victims comply instinctively, conditioned by societal expectations to be courteous or helpful. These patterns of compliance are predictable, and criminals use them as a blueprint for further escalation. Every yes, every nod, every hesitation is another piece in their internal map of human behavior. One of the most effective strategies is testing predictability and routine. Criminals notice habitual patterns, the same coffee shop at the same time, walking the same route, the exact timing of daily routines. They watch for repeated behavior that makes the target predictable. Predictability is a vulnerability. It allows them to plan interactions, calculate risks, and adjust approaches without detection. For the criminal, the world becomes a series of experiments. Watch, nudge, observe, record. Routine provides a controlled environment in which these tests can be executed with minimal exposure. This is why people who are careful about their routines, varying routes, avoiding predictability, often avoid being targeted in the first place. Manipulation also escalates through indirect pressure. After initial compliance and testing, a criminal might introduce small dilemmas or subtle contradictions to see how you respond. These are not confrontational. They are designed to create micro-discomforts that reveal weaknesses. Do you insist on your way, or do you give in? Do you over-explain yourself, betraying uncertainty, or do you remain silent and confident? Every reaction refines their understanding of your psychological profile, allowing them to adapt subsequent behavior with frightening precision. By the time most people recognize danger, they have already supplied the manipulator with weeks, sometimes months, of actionable data. Another escalation tactic is indirect social testing. A criminal may attempt to observe how you interact with friends, colleagues, or family, looking for social vulnerabilities. Who do you trust? Who influences your decisions? How easily do others defend you? By subtly observing these dynamics, they map not only individual weaknesses, but also environmental vulnerabilities. This social component is often overlooked by victims. Many think that as long as they are cautious, by the time a criminal has completed the early tests, observing microexpressions, compliance, social interactions, and routines, they already have an intimate understanding of how their target reacts under subtle pressure. But observation and minor probing are only the beginning. The most dangerous phase comes when they begin to subtly influence behavior, testing boundaries in ways that feel natural and almost invisible. This stage is the bridge between being studied and being manipulated, and it's here that many victims unknowingly give away more control than they realize. At this point, the criminal is no longer asking trivial favors. They begin to escalate in a controlled manner, using the knowledge gathered to create situations that feel ordinary yet force small, incremental decisions. Each decision is a test, a way to determine obedience, compliance, or resistance. A casual invitation, a minor inconvenience, a confusing remark, these all serve a purpose. The criminal watches carefully, noting how the target navigates these situations. Do they over-explain? Do they hesitate? Do they apologize unnecessarily? Every subtle response is recorded in the mental blueprint, guiding the next move with precision. These manipulations are often so subtle that the victim cannot recognize them as tests. Someone might comment, "I just wanted to be helpful," or "I thought it was normal to agree," unaware that each yes is a brick in the foundation of exploitation. Criminals exploit social norms like politeness, empathy, and the desire to avoid conflict. The very traits that make people socially adept become tools of their own vulnerability. The careful observer learns that patience, subtlety, and indirect influence are far more effective than force or aggression in the early stages of targeting a victim. One of the most effective strategies in this phase is creating micro-dependency. Criminals look for ways to make a target rely on them, however, minimally. It could be something as simple as consistently offering small favors or presenting themselves as a helpful, trustworthy figure. These interactions are designed to create a sense of familiarity and subtle obligation. When the target begins to unconsciously rely on these small gestures, it is easier for the criminal to escalate manipulation later. This is not obvious at first, and the victim often feels a sense of goodwill toward the manipulator. Unaware that these seemingly benign interactions are part of a calculated test, manipulators also employ mirror and mimicry techniques, copying posture, gestures, and speech patterns to create comfort and rapport. This creates a false sense of connection, making the target more likely to comply with requests and less likely to resist subtle boundary pushing. Psychological studies have shown that people unconsciously trust those who mirror them, feeling similarity as a form of safety. Criminals use this principle strategically. The more they mirror, the more they learn about emotional thresholds, personality tendencies, and the ease of influence. By the time direct requests for compliance occur, the target may already be psychologically primed to agree, believing they are making free choices. Another critical element is testing response to ambiguity. Criminals will introduce small, confusing situations to see how the target resolves uncertainty. Do they make decisions hastily? Do they overcompensate? Are they comfortable asking questions or challenging assumptions? These subtle stressors reveal cognitive flexibility, problem-solving tendencies, and emotional stability. Each reaction refines the criminal's assessment, helping them predict how to escalate, influence, or pressure without triggering resistance. For example, someone who hesitates or becomes flustered under minor ambiguity may be targeted differently than someone who remains composed and assertive. Criminals are also skilled at testing emotional thresholds. They provoke minor irritations, guilt, or embarrassment to see how the target handles emotional discomfort. The goal is to discover points where they can manipulate emotions to influence behavior. For instance, a sarcastic comment, a challenge to a belief, or an unexpected criticism may seem trivial, but the target's response is revealing. Victims who overreact, apologize excessively, or become defensive provide clear insight into vulnerabilities, while those who maintain emotional equilibrium are noted as more resistant to manipulation. Even in this phase, criminals rarely take overt risks. Instead, they rely on cumulative patterns. Each small test, each subtle nudge, each minor boundary push builds a detailed psychological map of the target. By analyzing responses over time, they can predict reactions to larger requests or more direct confrontations. This methodical accumulation of data is what separates impulsive offenders from calculated manipulators. The patient, observant individual can escalate control with a frightening level of accuracy, often without the target ever realizing they have been assessed and subtly guided into compliance. Another dimension that is often overlooked is the interaction with the target's social environment. Skilled manipulators observe how people interact with family, friends, and colleagues. They note who defends them, who influences their choices, and how social pressures affect decision-making. By understanding social dynamics, criminals can exploit not only individual vulnerabilities, but also environmental weaknesses. For example, someone who is overly concerned about appearing polite in front of others may be more susceptible to manipulation in public settings. These social insights are critical in determining how, when, and where to escalate manipulation. By this point, the criminal has completed what can be described as a full behavioral assessment. They have identified key psychological triggers, habitual patterns, emotional thresholds, and social vulnerabilities. Every seemingly small decision the target made, agreeing to a request, following a suggestion, hesitating in response to ambiguity, has contributed to this profile. The precision of this approach is why many victims feel blindsided when escalation occurs. What seems like a sudden act of aggression is often the culmination of a carefully observed and manipulated pattern that unfolded over weeks or even months. Recognizing these escalation techniques is essential for anyone who wants to protect themselves. Awareness allows you to see the subtle signs before manipulation can gain momentum. Paying attention to your own reactions, asserting boundaries consistently, and being mindful of compliance tendencies can disrupt the manipulator's blueprint. Small changes in behavior, hesitation, questioning, refusing minor requests, can significantly alter the course of interactions, often deterring manipulators